Now, it's no secret that hospitality is a tough business. Cafes, bars, and even the most bustling restaurants struggle to maintain profitability. The hospitality landscape is constantly evolving and consumer preferences are constantly changing. With soaring operational costs and unpredictable market trends, how does one weather the storm and create a successful business? If you're a cafe owner or an aspiring business owner, this is the episode for you. Joining us is the man that has the answer to all the questions, no pressure. Opening 24 venues over the last 20 years, Nathan Toleman is a true legend of the hospitality industry. Along the way, he has built a reputation as one of Melbourne's most innovative hospitality entrepreneurs. He's the founder and creative director of the Mulberry Group, opening iconic venues such as Paddock, Higher Ground, Kettle Black, Liminal, Hazel, and Dessous. Safe to say he knows a thing or two about hospo businesses. Welcome, Nathan.
Don't go anywhere. We're going to have a quick word from one of our sponsors, Apax Lab. Elevate your coffee experience with Apax Lab Mineral Concentrates. Apax Lab's precision-engineered formulas, including tonic, jam, and lilac, are designed to enhance the coffee's natural flavors. Not going to change it, it's just going to enhance it. It's going to bring out the vibrant acidity, the rich sweetness, or if you use lilac, it might bring out those delicate floral notes that you've been looking for. Trusted by world-class cafes and even barista champions, Apax Lab helps you unlock your coffee's full potential. Discover more at apaxlab.com. Wait, where was that again, Sonam?
The internet.
Oh, okay. Thought he was going to say the website. Thanks. Today's episode is brought to you by our amazing sponsors at Eco Barista. The reason I sound like this is because they got massages at our stand at Mice, and so I'm getting a massage while recording this message for you. They're the best sponsor of the pod that we could have had. They have the best eco products. This probably sounds really pornographic, but it's not. I'm just getting a massage. They have the best eco-friendly coffee products. They got coffee bags that you can design yourself. They got cups. They got iced coffee cups. They got everything you need. So make sure to support them because they support us. Head to ecobarista.com.au and get 15% off your first purchase when you sign up. Oh, mama, that's good.
Welcome back to another episode of It's Just Coffee. I'm Sonam Sherpa. This is Liam Conroy and...
It's just coffee!
That's like, ick. Why do you guys keep doing this? So let's all welcome Nathan Toleman. Yay!
Thank you. Good to be here.
So Nathan's actually a pivotal part of my history. I actually worked at his first ever cafe, which is an acronym for...
A place to eat.
Original. Very good. He loves an acronym.
Love an acronym.
Yeah. I was there on that fateful day when you won the Delicious Magazine Cafe of the Year.
Actually, you're in the magazine.
I'm in the magazine.
Yeah.
The ricotta hotcakes, the corn fritter with the salmon.
Yeah. The banana bread with labna and pistachio.
The open lamb sandwich.
Oh, that
I
was
remember
good.
it all.
With red pepper.
Yeah, with the red peppers.
Remember the TFP, the tomato, feta and pesto?
It was, so this place, unbelievable. Side of the busy road, Heidelberg Road in Alphington, people went nuts for it. People were driving across town to get the muffins, the legendary Sarah muffins.
Yeah.
They were just going nuts for it. And then that's essentially where your whole hospitality thing started in terms of the empire. But we're going to talk a bit more about that, and we're going to talk a lot more about Nathan and, operationally how he works, how he's managed to get to those 20 businesses, what he's doing to sustain all these businesses now, and also how that translates to you as either a customer or a budding entrepreneur, or maybe you're already an operator and you're like, wow, I've got a peek under the hood of one of the best business operators in Melbourne. So first of all, Nathan, what's your coffee order?
I go through stages, but at the moment I'm just loving a flat white, which I know, it's not the best way to start the day. But yeah, flat white.
I've been host to Nathan's stages. I saw the first one, the Soy Magic.
Yeah.
I'm Soy Joy.
Yeah.
The Soy Joy.
I wasn't going to mention that, but that was a long time ago.
Man, half of that's solid.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I used to curdle really nicely.
Yeah, delicious. Get a spoon, please.
Yeah.
You championed it even through the iodine epidemic.
The iodine. As in so when you froth the milk, right, the iodine would try and...
No. So Bonsoy actually had too much iodine in its formula. It was at toxic levels, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Had to recall it and then redo the whole recipe.
And then we were having to drive around at night finding boxes of soy milk and, stockpiling it and everything. There was a lot going on back then.
It was insane. So also just to give Nathan a bit more credentials in terms of people that he's worked with, he's also worked with Noel and Hurt, which is an absolute god of coffee. He's worked with Kate Reid from Loon as well. There's so many other people there, but these are probably two of the heaviest hitters there. So let's start with the very, very, very beginning. How did you get into the hospitality industry?
Yeah, look, I mean, I, from a very young age, used to say to people, I want to be a hotel manager. I just went really, down a rabbit hole early on and went to a pub in the country in Marysville and just loved that feeling of people kind of all gathering around, connecting, having fun. And for me, I was like, I want to be a part of this. So started working in pizza restaurants when I was like 15 after school, started washing dishes like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then got, out the front making pizza. And then eventually I was making, enough that they were like, can you run the show tonight? And I was like, sure. So they'd go out, the three brothers, Mario, Anthony and Lino that owned it, would go out and party and I'd run the pizza shop. All my mates would come in and have free pizza and big bottles of Coke. And it was like, this is the life. I want to do this.
A win-win for everyone.
Yeah.
They're out. They're giving away Coke and pizza, which costs nothing.
Yeah.
I also completely trust the owners of that pizza shop, that lineup of Italian names.
I know, you can't not
Couldn't
trust them,
script it, man. Couldn't script it.
It was called Knight's Pizza. It's not around anymore. It was in Croydon, back in the neighbourhood, but yeah, it's gone now.
And what's your pizza making skill now?
Actually, Sarah does the great pizza making now. She makes this one with potato and oregano and just like really simple. But yeah.
You got a Gosney or what are you firing at home?
Nah, just a simple oven.
Just doing it. Oh,
Old
nice. School. I've got a technique where I do it in the cast iron. I'll fry it on the stovetop.
Yep.
And then chuck it in the pizza oven. So at least the base is crispy that way.
Sounds like a hot cake to me.
Yeah. That's exactly what a hot cake is.
Yeah.
So did you have a background in design or real estate? Because they're two of the main sort of variables that would have, instructed or driven some of your hospitality ventures?
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously hospitality was in my blood. I went to William Anglis, studied hospitality there, worked in restaurants and hotels for a few years, and then I went over to Japan to live for about 5 years, taught English, and when I came back, I was like, what do I want to do here? And I was really interested in design, but I didn't want to spend 5 years being an architect. So I thought I'll be a real estate agent, which doesn't make any sense. But to me, I was like, you're in houses, you get to see houses. It's kind of a similar thing. Did real estate for a year, enjoyed it, but probably not for me.
Yep. What side of real estate? Were you selling, letting?
It was private sales.
Oh, nice. Did you sell anything?
Yeah, I did actually. Sold quite a few. I was in Northcote, so I got to know all the streets. My first 3 months was basically knocking on doors. That was the way they kind of made or break you. And they were like, if you can get through 3 months of knocking on doors, then we'll give you a job. And I knocked on so many doors and people were like, yeah, I'd love to sell my house. And I kept coming back with listings and they were like, what the hell are you doing? And I'm like, I'm just talking to people and being nice, And they're like, let's get you on the sales team. And I beat a few big agents and got some mansions and a couple of big places. And it was a pretty cool job, but it was also pretty cutthroat. And probably, I think like the thing that I noticed was that there wasn't this feeling of like you need to worry about repeat customers. Whereas I'm like, wouldn't you want to like look after them so they come back to you in 5 or 10 years? Didn't really have that same attitude. So got out of real estate, but that time I had sales experience and I saw this job as a design consultant for a shop fitting company in Fitzroy in Gertrude Street, still there. And got a job there and I was basically going around to architects, getting them to specify our products, to build shops and restaurants and things. And after a while, people started thinking that I was an architect and they were like, can you come and design my shop for me? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Fake it till you make it, right? And just got into kind of design, manufacturing, working with metal workers, timber workers. And then I think that really just taught me how to build something,
Yeah. And are you still pretty hands-on with all the designs of the new ventures?
Yeah. The first probably 6 restaurants was just designed and built by us without an architect. And then finally, I think with Kettle Black was the first one we used an architect and realised the benefit of using someone who actually knows what they're doing as opposed to some guy just kind of thinking, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Kettle Black, by the way, absolutely destroyed Instagram when it first came out.
Yeah.
It was the Instagrammable cafe. It was the one that really set the tone for what fit-outs needed to look like. And I think every cafe kind of followed suit from that.
Yeah, I remember you coming in before we started building it and you were really like worried about how we were going to integrate the old with the new. And you were, because you were pretty into design and that as well. So I took your advice, really strongly and we kind of made this bit on the floor where the concrete floor and the marble floor merged together.
Yeah, I remember the hexagonal tiles and they merged together. The materiality was like overlaid. So so for people that don't know, it's a beautiful 2-story townhouse that just happens to have like a 50-story building that was built on top of it. They had to retain the facade of its townhouse to be able to build on top of it. And so for Nathan, the biggest challenge was how was he going to uphold that feel, look, and also the historic overlay that was already imposed on you, and then also have a brand new cafe built inside of it and make that feel like it was integrated. Obviously smashed it, seamless, and you also put out a little little kiosk out the front that absolutely just crushed that whole area.
Yeah, that was a last minute kind of thought. We were like, rather than making people have to come in and get a coffee, what if we would have just built a little kind of coffee cart with a little umbrella, and the coffee cart out the front used to do as much as some cafes would do a week, I reckon, like just coffee all day. And then I think Sam King used to be out there with Ryoko back in the day.
Ryoko Baba.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's really informed a lot of designs on bigger cafes now, hasn't it? They have that little offsite that does the coffee. I know at Top Paddock, you had that little takeaway window as well.
Yep.
So it's not like it's a brand new invention or anything like that. It was always in the wings. With acquiring locations, I know you've got now that real estate aspect to you as well. How do you approach that, or do most people now approach you because of your name and your credentials?
Yeah, look, there's a bit of both. I mean, I'm always on the lookout for sites, but people always come to me as well. I think like we've never been like, let's do a full survey of what this town needs and what it is. Like 3 Bags Full was just driving by all the time. That was the real shortcut for me, and just loving that building. And then one day the sort of for lease sign came up and I was like, actually, this is a good spot. To me, it's always about like, are there people around it? Do you think like what you want to do there is going to contribute to the neighbourhood? But there's also arguments that say, you can be out of the way and stand out more than you can if you're on a main street. When we did Apt, for example, like I think the motivations were places like Cafe Ray out in Brunswick that Mark Dundon opened, a Minor Place in Brunswick again, 2 really out of the way kind of corner spots that, people had to go to. And I think we kind of were like, if people have a reason to go there, they'll come there, and focus on those things like we always do, like food, fit out, service, atmosphere, coffee. So yeah, I think these days, like we get approached by a lot of people, but we also just keep an eye out for sites that are, I think, unique. And I mean, even Higher Ground at the time was probably a bit of a random one. We originally looked at that site and said no, because we were like, this is massive and why the hell would we want to do this? And we actually leased a smaller site around the corner for this idea we had, which was so stupid in hindsight, of doing a little mini hot cake cafe called, I think we're going to call it Top Cakes or something. We actually were designing it. And then we just went back into the bigger site and we're like, actually, why don't we do it here? But it was a huge risk. It had sat there empty for probably 2 years before we took it on. And then look, in hindsight, it was a great location and a great decision.
Yeah, there's not much in that area, was there? And
no, but when you think about it, it's almost like the centre of the city. Like you've got the Docklands there and the other part of the city. So it is quite central, but it felt like the bottom of the city at the time.
Yeah, it felt like no man's land, didn't it? But then you got into the space and you're like, whoa. You did an amazing job on that.
Yeah, I mean, again, there was probably a temptation to just put a second level in and be done with it and have maximum seating. But by kind of keeping the whole central space void, we obviously had less seating, but it's made into such a wow feature. Like people would go there and stand up on the top and just look at that ceiling.
Instagram, that was the Instagram photo, wasn't it? Everyone would go up to the top and get the photo looking back down across the whole thing.
Almost like being on Ezrock or,
Yeah, unreal. And then with that, so when you do have a developer or someone like that approach you, let's just say if you're, someone that's looking to get into a cafe and you do get into a fortunate position like this, is there something that you would be like, watch out for, or maybe this is a good idea, maybe it's a bad idea?
Yeah, look, I think we always do like a kind of a bit of an analysis. So firstly, like, what do you want to do? Is it going to be a fast casual where it doesn't need much seating, or do you need a number of seating? I think there's a sort of a number between 30 seats is probably good for like owner-operator, maybe with 2 waiters and maybe 2 in the kitchen. The next size up is probably 60 seats. And then I think the number for us was always around 100 seats. We kind of found like once you went from 30 or 60 seats to 100, the costs weren't that much more, but your ability to make more money was probably greater. Look at the square meter rent rate. So, usually you'd want to make sure you're not spending more than maybe $300 or $400 per square meter for a outer suburb site, and maybe up to $1,000 for a CBD site. Do some projections based on what you think the venue's going to do on a Monday to Friday and then on a weekend. And just say you think you're going to make, $2 or $3 grand a day Monday to Friday. That's, 10 to 15 Monday to Friday. And maybe you'd want to do at least 5 on a Saturday and Sunday. That's another 10. So maybe 25 a week. Then go, well, if we're doing 25 a week, you want to know that your rent's going to be around 5% of your annual revenue. Or I think if you then go back and go, well, look, our rent's actually 10% of revenue, this is going to be really hard to make it work. On the same note, you then want to be able to go, what is it going to cost to staff this venue? So if we're making 25 grand a week, you don't want to spend maybe more than 42% of your money on wages. So maybe like 12 grand a week. can you run this venue on 12 grand? And then do a roster and say, well, if we've got 2 baristas, 2 on the floor, 2 on the coffee, that's 2 in the kitchen, that's 6 people. Add it up. This is just not going to work. So, really make sure that you can achieve those numbers and also have the ability to scale up or scale down if it's quieter or busier. I think like we've probably gone from having our first cafe where the kitchen was too small and it kind of limited the growth we could do in Apt, to then saying, well, if the kitchen's bigger, we can actually then put more people in the kitchen and then service more people. Because, you go to a cafe sometimes Monday to Friday and the food comes out in 10 minutes, but on a weekend when it's busy, the wait gets out to 45 minutes. It's not ideal, is it?
Not at all. Wow. Well, there's a blueprint. No, the podcast is over, guys. He's pretty much just taught you how to do it. So that was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's, if you're in any way inclined or, of the persuasion of thinking of opening something, definitely listen back to that. I think the metrics that you've obviously identified, you've evolved, you've done it now for 20 years. These aren't things you're making up. It's not something you've just read in a business manual. You've actually done it, which is huge.
Jumping back to the design aspect just before that, it triggered a thing. We've been chatting on the pod about signature drinks and signature kind of things. From a design aspect, there was multiple times, Sonam's been part of your teams in multiple places, and from a design point looking up, even from the floor merging together, or there's that Instagram shot. Do you kind of think that way with the design aspects, like a signature drink, a reason to come there? Do you do that from a design perspective as well? We need that wow, that signature moment, that brand that's integrated into the actual space?
Yeah, look, it's probably more of my personal thing, a bit of an OCD, where when I'm in a space, I want to be able to feel that from every single angle as a customer, there's something that's kind of good to look at, and you're never sitting near the toilet or near the hallway. So I think you've got to look at everything is like a stage and everything is like a picture. So, the contrast between the table to the carpet to the floor to the seat, it has to sort of give reason for people to actually take a photo and share it, because, that is such a powerful tool. If someone's going to take a photo and share it with someone, as opposed to just go there and enjoy it but not share it. So it is about obviously giving people a reason to share that photo.
Yeah, and are those vignettes, are they kind of informed by your time living in Japan as well?
Yeah, I mean, look, Japan is obviously the mecca for design, and I think coming back to Apt, we had katagamis, which is a ikebana kind of, or a kimono style kind of patterns on the walls, and we made our own lamps out of old kimono stencils and stuff. So I think design, speaks to everyone, doesn't it? Whether you like it or not, when you go into a space, the way you feel directly, relates to you wanting to go back there again. And if it's not about the food or the service, it's about the lighting, or it's about the, just the general atmosphere in that space.
And I know Rowan can't be here, but he wanted me to ask about the Easter eggs. You leave a little trail along the way. You've got the speed sign seats, you've got the tea light drop lamps. The drop lights. Are you still doing that? Are you still laying a little trail in every single one of the venues now?
Actually, that's true, isn't it? Because we had the old street signs at Top Paddock, the tea lights at 2 birds, 1 stone and 3 bags full. And those lamps are still at 3 bags full above the seat.
Yeah.
I think I gave one to Nolan as a present. So there's one at Proud Mary still above the communal table. Then we did those little wall lights at 2 birds, 1 stone and Top Paddock, which were the old, they're called bobiches from chandeliers. Look, I think people still go into my venues and go, this is a Nathan Toleman venue, whether they kind of know it or not. Good question.
That's for you, Rowan. Look, I know we briefly touched on it when you talked about the blueprint for the metrics, the seating and all that sort of stuff. Is there something else that's something that's a non-tangible that you would say to someone that's aspiring? Would be like, hey, this is the key to building a successful hospitality business?
Look, there are so many things, but I'd probably say if you're starting out, just try not to overcapitalize. I know people want the best of everything when they start. It's like when you buy your first house, you've got this list of all these things you want. And then you start going out there looking, you're like, actually, maybe we can't afford a garage, or maybe we can't afford a 3rd bedroom. So you've got to live within your means. There's no point overcapitalizing and then realizing within 6 or 12 months, this is just not, financially viable. Spend the money where you need to spend it, but also try and save it where you don't. I think when we opened Apt, we had a $50,000 budget, which is crazy, but we got all the chairs for $1 from Genazzano auction. I went to the auction and they were like, okay, first bid is 50 school chairs, $1. And I was like, yep. And no one else bid. And I was like, great. Because, normally a chair would cost you between $200 and $300.
Especially a sturdy chair, yeah.
Yeah.
And they were stacking chairs as well.
Yeah, they were, yeah.
But you got 50 chairs for $1.
For $1.
Not a chair per dollar.
No.
That's amazing.
50, and then
That's
the table,
awesome.
the next lot was tables. And they were like, okay, next we've got these tables. And they were really nice, original sort of powder-coated table frames. Again, $1. And I just got ply and you know what ply's like? You just put a lacquer over it and it looks beautiful.
It comes back to life, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're opening a bar or a restaurant, people don't need all the bells and whistles. They just want to know that, they're going to feel good in the space. So I think the way to do it is just have a budget and try and stick to it. Don't overcapitalize, because the reality is if you spend that much money, you're going to need to make it back. And it's not just you that's going to have to pay that. It's the customer as well.
Yeah, and you don't make it back one for one. You've got to make the profit to pay it back as well.
Exactly.
All right, so the next step we're going to talk about is operations. And, operationally, you've got an amazing system put together now. You were telling us before about all the teams that you have in place and all the different structures about that. Could you tell someone else, i.e. our customers about that? Not customers, sorry, listeners, Pineapple. Could you tell our listeners about that?
Sure. I mean, probably like most people, when you start out, you have to do everything yourself. So, we were the dishwasher, we paid all the bills, we did all of the recruitment, we did all the hiring, we did all the training. And I guess as you grow, you have an opportunity to bring more people into your team and start to do those things. So, we've now got someone who, handles all of our finance. We've got a payroll coordinator. We've got an HR, people and culture manager, ops managers. And I think, having people who are better at that than you are is a really great thing to do. And then you can kind of like add that layer of support to all of the venues you've got as well. So, it's not just a matter of going from one venue to 10 or whatever it is overnight. You've got to kind of like find that way to grow, progressively and incrementally.
And would you build those systems at the start, or the readiness for those systems at the start, or it's just kind of just case by case?
I think it really depends on what your end goal is. Like if you just want to have one venue and just enjoy that life and just be an owner-operator working in the restaurant all the time, then ultimately it's up to you to be able to do as much of that as possible. The reality is that, if you want to grow, you've got to let go sometimes. And I think that's probably one of the hardest things. I had to learn that really hard when we opened Apt and went to Apt to Liar, because suddenly having one venue to two, I'd go to Liar and I'd be like, this isn't being done the way I want it done, but then the reality is if you want to grow, you've got to let go. And I think empowering other people to do things, it may not be the way you do it, but as long as the end result is the same, I think people want to know that they can have a bit of a say in how a business is run, and whether it's someone who's managing your business or even a business partner, you've got to give them the autonomy and the responsibility to do things their way.
Yeah, you got to let go to grow is huge, isn't it? That's one thing I'm going to start using around the office.
Yeah, I could see your eyes glow with that.
He needs that one. All right, so central to most of these offerings that you've got is a menu. It's food. How do you approach, a menu design? How do you approach, profitability? How do you approach speed, operations? There's so many dynamic forces. There's suppliers. There's waste. There's all these other things. How are you approaching that?
Yeah, well, look, we come at it from many ways. I think firstly, you've got to have a concept. You want to build that concept, whether it's a cafe or a Thai restaurant or a, Australian grill or whatever kind of wine bar it is. So have a really clear concept. You want to be able to give a chef a bit of a brief and say, hey, this is what we want to create and we want you to work within these parameters. I think it's really important to let a chef have some creativity and some freedom within that space. There's also like an element of, you've got to cook for the people, like it's got to be kind of food that people want to eat. There's a tendency sometimes for chefs to want to try and show all their tricks, maybe, impress the customers. But the reality is the customer just wants to have something that's delicious, enjoyable, and hopefully come back. I think we've kind of always said, like, try and have an element of like, some of the dishes are crowd pleasers, and then there's an element of maybe 2 or 3 where you can have a bit of fun and try and do something a little bit different. I guess, when we were at Top Paddock, we had this real philosophy around trying to have as few steps as possible in creating a dish, so that, it didn't take 10 different steps from the dish to get from the, the kitchen out the door. It had to actually have like 2 or 3. Getting menus that are really focused on as much prep beforehand is really important as well, so that you're not, I look back to Apt where we had the banana bread that Sarah was doing, where she was toasting the banana bread to order. She was then putting a peach in the oven and cooking it to order. even like to the point of like things like having bacon, now you go into most cafes and they'll have, started pre-cooking the bacon, so it's just finishing it off in the oven. Having fruit pre-poached or pre-roasted and then just flushing it in the oven, finishing it off. You want to make sure that, the customer's able to get their food as quickly as possible. Things like, costing the menu. I think a lot of assumptions are made that when a chef puts a dish on the menu that they've costed it. And it's probably unfair to think that, as a chef, you know how to do everything. We want you to be good at teaching people. We want you to be good at managing your costs. We want you to be good at like training. The reality is that like it's pretty tough to be good at everything. So try and take that costing component out of their hands and say, look, this is the program we use, whether it's, cooking the books or whatever it is, and then just have that taken out of their hands so that they just basically create a dish, put it into the system, and then we can price it accordingly. You want to make sure that, your food costs are probably between 20 to 28%. If you've got a dish on the menu that's over that, then you will ultimately be losing money on it. So that's not good business, is it?
No, not at all. And then just to the Todd Paddock thing where you're saying the least amount of steps, is that where the spoon in the avocado came into play?
Yeah, look, I think it was a combination. For those that don't know, we obviously were smashing avocado for a long time since Apt. And I think I'm happy to say Sarah, my wife, was the first one to put feta with smashed avocado and pepita and, the goat's cheese. It was a really cool kind of dish at the time. Bill Granger definitely pioneered avocado on toast, so not going to take that. See what I did there?
I saw what you did there. It's very good. Very good. You're not claiming it.
No. What was I talking about then?
The spoon and the avocado.
Yeah, so we'd been smashing avocado for a long time, and it got to the point where we were smashing avocado to order, and then you'd go into restaurants and they just had big buckets of avocado that was sitting there, and it's like you could actually start buying avocado smashed. So to me, that was probably moving away from the foundation or the origin of what that dish was about. So when we opened Top Paddock, Jesse was like, I'm just going to cut an avocado in half, put a spoon in it and serve it. And it was a really nice way to say, this is the simplicity of the dish. And some people got it and loved it, but there were others that were like, this is an insult. I can't believe your chefs would make us have to do this ourselves, But look, it was
great talking point.
It was a talking point, right? And I think now a lot of people are serving avocado, just a half an avocado, and I think it's really nice.
I think it also speaks to the quality of produce.
Yeah.
If your produce is good enough, you can do that. But if it's not and you're smashing it and hiding it, it's no good.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of cafes now that have the drawer system, fridge drawers, and they've got the smashed avocado drawer. You see them pull it
like
open.
the tiramisu drawer.
Yeah, but you're just like, you're kind of like, ew.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's totally fine. It's still delicious, but it's just like, there's an ick to it for me. I don't know why.
Yeah. And look, we also look at loss leaders, like you say. We had that amazing soft shell crab we were getting flown in from Queensland. They were probably the only place in the world, in Australia, where you can buy soft shell crab. And it was costing us about $7 landed for a crab. And we were selling it for like $20, which is well less than what it should be based on our normal food costs. And you could buy the equivalent soft shell crab from farmed waters overseas that was frozen and shipped in for maybe $1.50. And some of our competitors were selling it for like $15, which was really hard, because people would come in and say, oh, how can you be serving this for $20 when you can get it for $14? And not realizing we were actually losing money on that dish. But it was such a beautiful dish with the claws coming out and, battered and
a beautiful bun as well.
Yeah.
So
but in the end, we had to get rid of it.
Yeah, it's just too expensive. It's beyond a loss leader.
Yeah.
That's heartbreaking.
It was.
If you love like a dish and you've taken the time to design it, you've gone through the steps of like, systematically, how do we roll this out on like, at a high rate, and then to sit back and go, you know what? Yeah. We have to make the call.
It's hard because you don't want to have to necessarily educate the customers too much. Like they want to just come in and enjoy it. But for you to have to explain, this is the reason, this is why, it kind of like turns it into a bit of a lecture as opposed to just an enjoyable breakfast.
Especially if you've got like a 21-year-old uni student just working there on the weekend, having to relay that message with no conviction at all. It's like, but trust me. It's like, I think it's like this.
It was a great dish though.
Unbelievable. Textural pleasure, some would say.
Do you have a all-time favorite menu item?
I'd probably say the open lamb sandwich at Apt. It was just this like a toast of sourdough where she maybe rubbed some garlic on it, this braised lamb that was just sort of falling off the bone, some marinated red pepper, a bit of rocket, and then a bit of, was it feta?
It was always feta, yeah.
Yeah, it was such a simple dish, and I haven't seen it since. And even my old business partner, Diamond, always says to me, just bring back the old Apt menu. TFP, the tomato, feta and pesto, the banana bread, the simple hot cake with ricotta. It was a pretty cool menu at the time, wasn't it?
It was just it was a absolute outlier of what was happening on other menus at the time. It was someone actually dedicating to doing everything absolutely properly. Like even just the hollandaise sauce was just done properly.
Yep.
It was so thick, so decadent, but at the same time fresh, which I just you don't really taste anymore. You know, most hollandaise tastes like it's been sitting there for 3 days. And you're like, is this out of a can? Is that even possible?
Even the corn fritters that she made, the corn was great. It looks like cut off the corn cob and put into the fritters fresh.
Yeah, not out of a tin.
Little pops of corn and
plenty of dill as well.
Plenty of dill. You've got a good memory.
I do have it's a taste-based memory. I think Liam just talked about your favourite dish. In terms of like crowd favourites, what do you reckon you've sold the most of? Smashed avocado, ricotta hotcakes?
Yeah, look, I mean, I'd probably say when we had Top Paddock and Kettle Black and High Ground at its heyday, we were doing so many hotcakes a day. So I'd probably say that one.
Yeah, and it's very photogenic, and it definitely evolved from that first into what it ended up looking like at Top Paddock.
Yeah.
We'll probably insert a picture of it here in the pod. It is just beautiful, isn't it? It's like covered in flowers, beautiful quenelle on top, the maple syrup. It was just
the violet sugar.
Yeah, he knew what he was doing, Jesse.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird question, but is there anything like in terms of menu or offering you can't imagine any of your venues not having?
I mean, look, it really depends on the chef we've got at the time and the concept we're going for. So every venue is different. I mean, I can't imagine having a cafe without poached eggs or some kind of egg dish.
Yep.
You know, the reality is in Melbourne these days, if you go to a cafe on a Sunday morning, you want to be able to have something with an egg in it, whether it's a baked egg or a poached egg or a scrambled egg or an omelette. So I'd probably say in a cafe, I can't imagine not having an egg.
Yep.
In a restaurant, yeah, look, it really depends on the venue. So I think
house-made bread, surely.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
The bread at Lilac's quite good.
Yeah, that is good actually, and that's at Hazel now too.
Here we go. And then, you know, that's food. Let's talk about drinks itself. So we've seen the rise of signature drinks over the past couple of years. You know, the Mont Blanc everyone knows about it. They're pretty much at every single cafe now. What role do signature drinks play at your cafes or even at your restaurants? Like we could be signature cocktails or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I look back thinking of like when we were at the early days in the cafes and you would never do like a flavoured coffee. People would come in and ask if you have syrups, you know, and it was almost frowned upon. Whereas I think since COVID, there's been this real kind of feeling of just giving people what they want. And there's a real shift around being comfortable actually doing flavoured coffee and not just saying, no, the coffee is the flavour, as opposed to now saying, yeah, you want a strawberry syrup in there or you want a chai shot in there, whatever. But we don't really have, you know, signature coffee drinks. I'd say we're probably more focusing on our signature non-alcoholic range that we're doing throughout our venues. We've got Kayla, who's an amazing bar manager at Molly, who does all of these different ferments and preserves and things and makes ridiculous non-alcoholic drinks where you actually feel like you're drinking an alcohol. And yeah, probably just Caitlin at Molly is doing like, you know, rose kombucha, really great soft drinks. So I'd say we're probably more focusing on that where we want to try and start scaling them out.
Yeah, I mean, look, an elevated kombucha really speaks for itself, doesn't it? There's nothing worse than you go to a cafe and they just pop a bottle of Remedy on the table and you're like, oh, it's not really what I wanted.
Yeah, I mean,
$7, all right, thanks.
I think once you've had a house-made kombucha or something that's made in-house really well, it's hard to go back to a bottled one.
Yeah, and you can actually taste the flavours of what we're talking about. It doesn't just taste overly sweet.
Yep.
You've often been copied along the way. I mean, A, how do you cope with that? And B, how do you stay ahead of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I've gone to some places and I've seen photos around the world of like, you know, complete rip-offs of our venues. And I think I used to be a little bit like annoyed about it, but now I'm just like, oh, look, it's flattering. You know, the reality is in any industry that if something does well, it will be copied, you know, whether it's cars, food, drinks. So look, I think it's just a part of the industry. In terms of staying ahead of it, I think it's just about having a really clear focus, a really clear vision and just sticking to it and not letting yourself get distracted by what other people are doing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? Trying to manage that balance of like, oh, thank you, it's so flattering. And they're just like, I hate you so much right now. Yeah. I want to go in and rip this down.
People used to love like sharing photos with me and being like, have you seen this? It's like exactly like yours. And it's like, what can I do? You know, what am I going to do about it?
Do you ever get the opposite where they don't know it's yours and they go, oh, look, someone's copied, you've copied someone else. And you're like, no, I didn't.
No.
no, pretty sure I didn't.
Yeah, nah.
No, it doesn't happen. All right, so you were recently in the newspaper and talking about adaptability and talking about what happened with Molly. I think the quote is, Molly missed the mark with locals. Now you've gone back to the drawing board, revealing an all-new women leadership team with impressive international credentials. Can we talk about just adaptability as a whole? We'll talk about that first and what you've done at Molly to change It's a small cafe and a bigger bistro sort of space in Abbotsford. What was it, 1 year in, and you've decided to reshape that. Could you talk about that first, and then we'll go into a bit more depth about adaptability along the way?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess you always go into something with a plan and a vision and how you want it to go. And the reality is whether you have a successful business or not. So things do change along the way. I think, nothing really is fully formed when it starts. It does evolve. It's like anything. We probably signed that lease a few years ago at a totally different time in the Melbourne landscape. As we were developing it, we always had the idea. It was quite a kind of a unusual shape where there was a larger site on the corner and then a smaller one next to it. And we sort of thought there was an opportunity to do like a nighttime kind of bistro wine bar with a smaller daytime deli cafe that wasn't quite a cafe, wasn't quite a deli, wasn't quite a sandwich shop, a bit of a hybrid. And so we opened them in about a year ago. The smaller site, Little Molly, was great, but it was a bit small in terms of what we wanted to do. The kitchen there wasn't as big as we would have, liked to do, so we were kind of limited by what we could do as well. And then we sort of kept looking across to the bigger venue next door, seeing empty and being like, we could just combine the two. So it made sense to combine the daytime venue into the nighttime venue purely from an economic point of view. In terms of the nighttime offering, I think we just felt like what we thought would be more like a neighbourhood bistro started to be feeling more like a special occasion restaurant that wasn't as, focused on families and locals. And I think rather than trying to change it, we just made the call to actually stop it and start again and press reset. And I think what we've done now is really go back to kind of like that feeling of a neighbourhood wine bar, the fact that you can come in there in the morning and then come in at lunch and come in the evening. And it's in this first few weeks, it's been really successful. So I think we've made the right call. Sometimes you can let your kind of maybe pride or ego get in the way and keep trying to push something and not want to admit, hey, this isn't working. But I think the longer you delay it, the worse it's going to get.
Yeah, okay. So in hindsight, do you think you made the call too late, too early, or just at the right time?
Look, you can probably say we made it. We could have made it earlier, but I think we wanted to give it a chance. And also, we wanted to kind of really, it's hard to make a decision too quickly. You want to be able to go, let's give it a go. But I think in the reality is we made the call at the right time.
Yeah. Okay. So you've aligned the offering with what the customers are actually wanting and the preferences there as well now. How's that reflected in your menu? Is like you've taken certain things off, put new things on. I know you've completely changed. Is there any two menu items that should really highlight that and show what you've done as changing the things?
Yeah, look, it's a completely different menu. It's probably more price conscious. So people can come in there and just have a couple of snacks and a glass of wine. Like I think our previous cheapest bottle of glass of wine might have been like $16. Now we've got glasses of wine for $12. It's only $4, but it's a huge psychological barrier when you're going to a restaurant or a wine bar. To be able to get a glass of wine for $12 and then maybe get a second one for $24, you kind of feel like a bit more value. And I think right now, the way the economy's been, the way people are feeling, you've got so much competition to be able to offer someone a reason to go there, not just once a month, but maybe once a week is pretty important.
Yeah, and let's be fair, one glass of wine's not enough. Like you need to have one. You need to have two. You're going out, you're going to have one before the meal and then one during the meal,
and then
most
a cocktail.
likely. Yeah, and if you can get a cocktail in there as well. So how flexible are you when it comes to pivoting in your business strategies? Is this something that you've done in any of the other ones that you've done along the way?
I wouldn't say we've pivoted, but we just kind of modify them and evolve as we go. Like, the reality is that what works today in this market, in 3 or 4 years' time, it's not going to be the same. And I think you've got to be willing to be flexible with that. Probably the main things we've done in the past year or two in all of our venues is now start to go, hey, there's a real market now for cleaner, healthier eating. Way more people are eating just plant-based, or they're more kind of less eating meat on a regular basis. So rather than just saying when someone comes in, oh yeah, we can do a vegan meal or a vegetarian meal, we actually have a fully printed out vegan and vegetarian menu now in all of our restaurants. And I think people want to know when they go out as a vegetarian, I'm actually going to be able to eat something here and enjoy it. So never thought we would be doing that, maybe 5 years ago, but it's just the way the market's gone. And who knows where it's going to go in the next year or two. But you've got to be willing to, I guess, listen to customers and meet them where they are. Because if they're not coming to you for that reason, they'll go elsewhere. So
there's a lot of that is being reactive. How often are you guys being proactive when it comes to menu design and all these customer offerings?
Yeah, look, I think Caitlin at Molly is a really good example of that. Like she's probably leading the way in terms of fermentation, pickling, preserves. There's a real kind of, it's almost like a growing interest in that kind of world. And I think she's really seeing that through her cooking. Like it's amazing when you go and eat her food, she doesn't actually add salt or anything to it, but it's got so much flavour and it comes out of the soy sauce or out of the the sauces she's actually making. It's almost like an evolving science. And I think, the way we eat is changing so much. And I think, having that creativity that she's now able to put into a restaurant is really cool for her.
Yeah, and that's amazing that you can have that inside of your group that can now spread out and, help, obviously with some of your staff, educate them and also upskill them as well.
Yeah.
And it makes you individual as well to a certain degree. In terms of your business experience and over those period, the past 20 years, what are some of the biggest challenges, and how have they shaped you and how have they made you who you are in terms of this now super, diligent, you've got amazing systems, you take care of your staff and you're also got the option to be able to modify businesses. What are the main challenges along the way that you faced?
Probably from my point of view is knowing when an opportunity is right to do. Like I see potential in anything and I'm always, I guess, distracted or taken by opportunities. But sometimes, you can rush into decisions, maybe having a kind of a filter where you go, yeah, this is a good opportunity, but is it the right thing to do right now?
Timing, yeah.
Yeah, because, timing is everything, right? And I think you can probably make a decision at the time that feels good, but then the reality is you've got to then execute it, and that could take 12 months. And, you've got to really think about where am I going to be in 12 months and is this going to be the right thing to do at this time? I'd probably say just having that decision-making process around me now and having the team and around me to sort of say, hey, this is or isn't a good idea. Whereas before it was just whatever felt right, I'd do.
You just go with your gut.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing to do. But
it's worked for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at aligning your values with business because you've done it for so long, as I've probably harped on about 100 times now. It's not just about you. It's not just about bottom line. It's not just about profits. Today's world, sustainability and wellness are huge factors to that. How do you integrate these both in terms of operationally for your food resources, in terms of gas, electricity, and then also in terms of sustainability with humans and keeping human resources and your staff at the best, almost optimal range?
I always, when I hear that word resource, human resource, I think we need to change that to human asset, because when you think of a resource is something that you use and it kind of runs out eventually, whereas to me an asset is something you protect. So I don't know why we always call it a human resource. It sounds so usable, like we need more humans. Can we get some more humans in here, please? So I don't know whether we can start to change that word, but
that's amazing. That's a fair point. Look, I apologize to everyone that I've called a resource. You're not my asset.
You're human assets. You want to protect your assets, right?
100%.
And you kind of nurture them and want them to grow. So I guess we probably realized, maybe 5 or 6 years ago that we are in the food system. We rely on food and we rely on people. If we're not looking after those assets, then we are going to be in trouble, not just as a business, but as an entire race, right? Our food is getting further and further away from us. There's way more food that's coming into the system now that we don't even know how it's grown, where it's grown. You look at all the illnesses that are coming through.
Where they're coming from,
Where they're coming from, right? So we probably, I guess, I always looked at my restaurant group as sort of this little business that exists here. And then I was trying to do stuff on the side, whether it be socially, environmental, the way we all have things that we care about. And we were how can we try and integrate, that part of our business, or our beliefs into our business on an everyday level. So, things we do, obviously we have waste that we use, right? Every restaurant has waste. You think about, you buy vegetables, you cut off the good bits, and generally you throw away the scraps, whether it be cotton, the carrot tops, celery, whatever it is. The first thing is where does your waste go to? So we obviously made the call to try and minimize that as much as possible. So our chefs are now really into trying to make things out of that waste product. Then when there is an actual waste product that comes back from a customer, you can either make a call to just chuck it into the bin, which is what most people probably do, because the reality is it costs you X amount of money to take rubbish away. If you want to pay for your green waste to be collected and taken away, it's probably about twice as expensive as it is for landfill, which is crazy, isn't it?
Disgusting, it is, isn't it? And I'm going to echo your resource into asset.
Yeah.
That vegetable's an asset. What are you doing? Right. Why are you throwing it away?
Someone's grown it. It's got nutrients in it. Why do you want to throw it away?
The whole thing is edible.
Yeah. So I think getting our chefs on that mindset, and it's been a game changer. They have this WhatsApp group where we get messages from the farm saying, hey, we've got these products. Would anyone want them? And then someone's like, hey, I'll take the tops, or I'll take the leaves. And I mean, you can take leaves from anything and make it into like a braise, and then you've got it as a filler for it. There's so many things you can do with it. We also have worm farms in all our venues now. So, whatever we don't, put into the landfill, which is not much, can then be put through the worm farms. The worms eat it, put out the juice, and the juice can then go back to the farm. I think electricity is a big thing. Like we try not to use gas where possible. And I think, Liminal's a fully electric induction kitchen. Our first one was probably Kettle Black back in the day. High Ground was fully electric induction. The reality is now, though, that those decisions are made for you, which is great. Most new developments won't let you have gas. So the decision's kind of made for you. But even, the electricity, the argument is it's a lot cleaner. The noise in the kitchen is way less. I mean, having a gas burning continuously in your kitchen cannot be good for you. Cleaning it up at night time is pretty hard as well, whereas electric, you can just wipe it down. A lot of chefs used to say, it doesn't cook as well, but I disagree. I think it cooks as well.
Yeah, the technology is definitely there. And then how are you taking care of your human assets?
Look, I mean, we like to give them, the ability to communicate with us on a daily basis. So we do like weekly check-ins where we email them out and get feedback. There's the ability to be able to take days off whenever you want. Just giving them the flexibility to have like a bit of a work-life balance. No one does crazy hours. If you need a weekend off, you just request it. I think probably the Common Ground Project, our farm's been a really great way for them to feel like when you're coming to work, you're not just working for a restaurant group, you're also doing something that benefits the community. Common Ground's been going for about 6 years now. Probably about 40 women have gone through the training program. These are women who are usually from asylum seeker background, never had jobs in Australia. They've come here usually often without a partner, maybe a couple of kids. And then these women are put through a training program at Common Ground where they can then learn they already know how to cook, but learn how to integrate into a local food system or into a kitchen environment. And about 75% of them have gone on to gain employment now. So to know that when, you're working in a restaurant, you're actually having a direct contribution, in the community is pretty cool as well.
It's amazing.
Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. Not everyone's got that luxury. Not that it's a luxury, it's that mindset. How would you, tell someone that's got a smaller business, how would you tell them to deal with their staff and how they could check in with them and stuff like that?
Look, probably the same way you do in your business. You're here every day. You want to show them, I guess, make them aware of why we're here, why you exist. That's really important. A lot of people want to know the why these days. I think we used to just do, and it was just about having fun. And as much of it was fun, definitely. I think now, you've got to kind of say, hey, this is what we're trying to achieve as a business, and you're a part of that. Bring them along on that journey. Just check in with them regularly, obviously you want them to come to work and be their best self, but sometimes, we all have mental health issues. We all have issues going on in our life. Don't be expecting people just to keep that to themselves, openly talk about it.
Yeah, and other people have, people have issues with other people in their life that they've got to attend to as well. So you've also got to be sensitive of that, I think, as well.
Yeah.
So how do you balance it all? Like you've got all these things going. You've got absolutely no end. You've got opportunities coming at your left, right and centre. You've got a young family or medium family now. What would you call it? Intermediate family?
Well, my youngest is 8 and my oldest is 16. So we're still quite in the thick of it. Yeah. 4 kids.
Yeah. You've still got quite a long way to go before you get that holiday to just to you and Sarah, yeah?
Yeah.
How do you balance it all? Like what is your work-life balance?
Yeah, look, I mean, I love my work. So to me, I get to get up every morning and I jump out of bed and go to work. It's doing something that I love. But I also manage to switch off. I get, most nights off. I'll try and check into the restaurants a couple of nights a week and just see what's happening and, just check on the vibe and, the customer experience and how the staff are going. Weekends is just, sport nonstop. Kids, 3 or 4 basketball games on Saturday, 3 or 4 footy games on Sunday. Pretty much.
Yeah.
And then I guess I just, look after myself, get out, do a bit of exercise.
Yeah. And you were saying your daughter's now working for you at one of the venues?
Yeah. Look, she was probably a pretty shy kid and I wanted her to try and just get a bit of confidence. And I said, look, why don't you come in on the weekends? I'll help you work in one of the cafes. So she came in about 6 months ago. She was standing there with her hands behind, looking really nervous. And I was like, you got to just, look more comfortable. And after a week, she started to pick it up. And then within a few weeks, she was like basically running the show, telling me off. I didn't set cutlery on a table and you didn't put that order in properly. And I'm like, She's got that kind of
she's got the Toleman bite,
the bossy nature in her, which is good to see.
It's inherent, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's so good. Look, I mean, that covers off most of the stuff that we were going to talk about, adding value to people that were, people that are listening, that are hoping to open a red new or maybe are actually running one. Now I'm just going to ask you some questions just because, I just wanted to catch up.
Yeah.
There's one big thing that everyone's talking about, which is AI. How are you integrating AI into your business?
Yeah, look, I think I was so like, oh my God, AI is going to ruin everything. It's going to take over. We're going to be without jobs. But the reality I feel is that it's doing things that we weren't able to do or didn't have time to do. And probably an example of that would be we used to have one of our marketing people spend maybe 5 or 6 hours a week taking all of the data, getting all of the positive and negative reviews, and then providing feedback. And it was a big expense, but it was really important. Whereas now the reservation system we use, every week it'll send us an AI-generated report of all the positive feedback, all the negative, and recommendations, which is pretty crazy. Another thing we do is we have a weekly leadership meeting where we basically do a forecast and a review of the previous week and then go around and just venue by venue. We record that and then we put it into an AI filter that makes it into a podcast with like a guy and a girl basically talking about the venue like they're on the stock exchange, and we can then share that with our team. And it's way better than sending out meeting notes, So
how long's the podcast?
It's about 30 minutes.
Perfect.
So you can listen to it on your morning walk or in the car. And it's a great way to just get information to the people because really people want to know what's going on, and that kind of feedback on a weekly basis is great.
Yeah, 100%. I think the advantages of that far outweigh the disadvantages of it.
Yeah.
Completely, don't they? Like the managing to get that knowledge transferred over to your staff in such a clean,
it would never have happened,
and truthful way.
Yeah.
Most people are pretty truthful when it comes to do I have a good time, bad time these days. Like you want a better service, so you've got to plug into the system.
Yeah. I mean, even like how many emails do you get a day? If you start to just have a general sort of suite of standard emails that you get, you can pretty much pump out an email now in 20 seconds.
Because you know what's coming back.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Not saying that. We're not AIing anyone's emails.
No.
All right. What would you do differently if you went back 20 years?
Yeah. Look, I mean, we've always created new venues each time with like a new look, a new feel, a new menu, a new name. Over the years, we've had people approach us about doing second or third sites, and we'd always been like, no, we would never do that. That's not what we're about. Melbourne's not about that. But I feel like in hindsight, people seem to be a lot more accepting of people opening second and third stores of the same brand, not a franchise as such. Probably would have just, in hindsight, maybe done one of those sites, the second or third. We had people approaching us around Australia and the world to do like other sites, and I always worried that it would damage the business or the brand. Who knows? But maybe we could have given it a go.
Yeah, you look at what Movita's managed to do with their different sites, and they're all within like a kilometre of each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that Movita Key site as well. It's great. What does the future look like for the Mulberry Group?
We just want to be having a bigger impact in the community. Like, every time we open a restaurant, it's not just about opening a new venue. It's about supporting our community and giving back to the farm. The farm's been going for 6 years now. We've got a team there of about 6 people. There's a CEO, 2 full-time farmers. We've got a full-time educator. They basically run through school programs. We do about probably 3,000 or 4,000 kids a month that go through there. I think like we can have a really big impact there, and it's becoming more and more well-known in the community. We're getting more and more grants from local community, from government. I just want to be able to look back in 5, 10, 15 years and say, through something I love doing, through running restaurants, that we were able to have a really big impact in the community and actually change the world.
Yeah, I mean, I've been down there, and I was down there early days. It was a barren piece of land. So to get it to where you've got it to, and to get that many kids through, now you have got full-time farmers, is it's a reflection of the commitment that you've put in, the time and the effort, the worm farming, everything that goes around it. Because it is that old adage of Rome wasn't built in a day. What are the plans for Common Ground? Is it going to get bigger, or is it going to be more productive, or is it more on the educational, like scholastic side of things? It's
about a 40-acre property. We lease 4 acres. We've got about 2 acres planted out with crops. Essentially, we probably sell around about $5,000 a week worth of produce. We'd love to build that out further. We've got probably more and more demand for catering. So we'd love to get some funding to be able to start a full-time catering business with these women. We just want to be able to offer more training, more opportunities for people down there. Long term, who knows? There's opportunity to put more things on that site. But it's all about funding, I guess.
Yeah. And it's an insane travel corridor as well when you think about it.
It's such a busy road.
It's such a busy road. It's 100K or 80 Ks an hour, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, it's so fast. You're just zooming past. Okay, so I'm going to ask a couple of hooky questions now because I'm self-aware and we love the internet. What are the 3 things you wish every new cafe owner knew?
I wish they knew what their rent was, a percentage of their revenue, and what it should be, because I don't think enough people realise that. I think they just think that rent is just a number, but it really needs to be managed. Probably their why, because if you don't know what your why is, then you don't know what you're doing or why you're doing it. And it's really kind of important to know, why do you exist and who is your customer and why do they need to come to you? The third thing I wish they knew, probably what their end goal is. I think sometimes you go into it without an end goal, but there's that kind of saying, start with the end in mind, right? Like, what is your end goal? I think in the past, I've done things where I've just done it for the sake of it. But I think if you know really clearly about where you want to get to and why, it's a lot easier to get there.
Yeah, amazing. One thing listeners can do tomorrow to improve their venue's profitability.
Make more money.
Make more money? It's as simple as that.
Less.
Yeah, spend less, yeah. Don't spend too much at the start either, I guess.
Yeah. I guess just don't overcapitalize if you don't need to. There's so many tempting opportunities out there, but there's also lots of ones you can just pick up and maybe give it a bit of a fresh lick of paint, like this space here,
It took a lot of paint, by the way. Those bricks were very porous.
But it was just a few cans of beer and a few cans of paint, right?
No, we paid someone to do it. It was too much effort. We were too busy making the money.
I actually hired a spray gun the other day for the first time ever, and they are a game changer.
They are so good, aren't they?
I just used one to paint. I was painting these things for Lilac, and I'm like, and I went to Bunnings, got a $50 paint gun.
The Azito gun. I know
oh my God, it's a game changer.
Yeah, it's so good. We bought one for the guy to do the painting for us.
That's kind of painting.
Yeah, we had
not really.
Rowan and I kind of say we did it.
Yeah,
the guy who painted always pulls us up and goes, "No, I did it." Like, no, we paid you to do it.
If you ever go back to 3 Bags Full, look kind of as you go in and look behind, up on the wall. There's a black hand on the wall because we obviously painted. I broke my wrist building.
I remember that.
Painting
yeah,
3 Bags Full, fell off a ladder, and Diamond was painting the ceiling black, and she put her hand on the wall. There's still a black hand above the door that is Diamond's hand. So there's a little...
another Easter egg for you.
A little one, yeah.
Oh, that's so good. If you were starting again today, what's one thing you'd do differently and what's one thing you'd do absolutely the same?
Well, I mean, if I'm starting again, it's apt. Like I really probably wouldn't do that much differently. It was done on a really good budget. I mean, I probably would have a menu the day before we opened. That was a real fun one where I was building it and I was all finished and I was like, right, we're ready to open tomorrow. And my wife, Sarah, is the most laid-back person ever. And I'm like, right, where's the menu? And she was like, I haven't done it yet. And I was like, we're opening tomorrow. You haven't got a menu? And she's like, I haven't even ordered the food yet. And I was like, whereas you think about opening a restaurant now, you have the menu planned months out. And my mate was there and he was like, don't worry, I'll go to the supermarket now. And he came back with like a bag with a loaf of white bread and cornflakes. I had a meltdown. I'm like, we are not opening this cafe tomorrow. But Sarah Folletta, in true style, she opened this restaurant the next day and it was perfect. I don't know what she did or how she did it. But yeah,
maybe she was just having you on. Maybe she had the fridges full.
Maybe.
That's an amazing gag.
That's awesome.
That's really good. And then, how much of a importance or how much effort do you put into coffee now across all your venues? Because you were there.
Yeah.
You've been the head of coffee. You've done the Nolan thing. You did the, however many Sinessos, the different brewers, the different grinders, the different single origins, custom blends. You've done it all.
Yeah.
Where are you at now with it?
Yeah, it's funny. Like when we opened Apt, we bought like a little $2,000 Ascoyan that was secondhand, using Atomica back in the day. And even then, we never knew what the beans were, what the blend was, and people didn't really care as long as it was good. And then when Nolan came along and we started using 5 senses, it was like, right, we need to start getting serious. I think like it's gone kind of full circle where people just want to know that they're having a really delicious coffee. So we kind of keep it pretty simple now. We don't have like a heap of options. We just have like a really good house blend. We have maybe a single origin and a decaf and a couple of filters. And I think it's all about consistency and it's all about like, ease. And I think that's just not for the customer, but for the staff as well. So I think we probably overcomplicated things a few years ago back in the day with like aging coffee and and I'm not saying there's not a place for it, but I think when you think about the average punter who wants to come in for a coffee, and they're the ones that are paying your rent and your bills. They don't really want to wait 45 minutes for you to like grind, a coffee to order and all these things.
And pour something.
Yeah. So like it's probably just gone back to simplicity for us. Still needs to be delicious because people still want to love their coffee. And there's a place for that kind of coffee, but it's probably just more us now focusing on like speed and efficiency. Yeah,
one of our long time friends, Jamie Thompson, was the head barista at 3 Bags Full at the start. And the amount of coffee that he was getting us through and the amount of like the quality of coffee, we're getting all these 90 plus like coffees, all these Nikises. I don't want to know how much he was spending on coffee for you guys.
Well, look, I mean, it did the job though, right? Because it was delicious coffee and people were going there. And at that point, there weren't many places you could get that coffee. There was a few around, but I think, he did a great job. He was probably, I reckon, out of all the amazing baristas we've worked with, and there's been a lot, he was the best cafe barista in terms of just like pumping out good coffee.
Just got the job done. He knew what the threshold was. I think that's the thing that a lot of people forget. A lot of people go too deep into the ego.
Yep.
But that being said, the coffees that we were getting through that place, you would not be able to afford now.
Nah.
Like we would not be able to actually buy them. They wouldn't even make it to Australia. You'd have to buy them from someone overseas.
That's so true. That little board was full of it all, wasn't it?
Yeah. Next time Jamie's in, I'll get to show us some of the photos of all the offerings that he's had.
And give me the invoices. I bet the coffee wasn't costed properly. We were probably giving it away.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, and then, we'll close off with, what are your favourite spots in Melbourne right now? Like, where do you like to go to eat, drink, relax, have a coffee?
Yeah, I'm always just happy to try new places. I'm really loving the rise of the kind of Asian cafe that's come out. Like when we first started, there weren't that many great kind of modern cafes, but now you've got like all these great bakeries. I'll just try a different one every week, pretty much, and just move from one to the next. Yeah, I wouldn't want to say one over another.
That's fair enough. And then where are you eating for dinner?
Usually at home, which is pretty boring. But
that's fair enough.
Don't forget my wife is a chef, so it's usually pretty good. But yeah, again, just checking out new places that are good. I mean, I always love Tipo. It's such a good place for a pasta. I'd probably go there if I had to pick one.
Yeah, I've been going back to all the old stalwarts recently and just trying to revisit all the institutions. So they're there for a reason.
Yeah, well, actually, I went back to Jimmy's a while ago, and it is as good as ever. Greek Tavern. In
I was there.
Street.
I was there on Anzac Day night.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. We were cross-eyed.
Were you in the front or the back room?
I can't remember.
Oh no!
It was a mighty win by the Pies on Anzac Day.
Oh, they're going well. Yeah,
that was a good time.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming in, Nathan, today. They've definitely laid down quite a few blueprints for different people wanting to adventure into the world of hospitality. And for anyone that's actually running a business, it's an absolute resource that you have here. I'd love to do another business podcast, or a podcast focused on business, where you actually outline everything, because I think there's so much more for you to give. And, we're just top line at the moment. We're going to look at getting further and further down the line. I think there's far too little said today about, if I wanted to turn a key tomorrow and sign a lease. This was just scratching the surface. And you'd probably agree with that too.
Yeah. Love to come back.
Yeah, I think we can definitely come back and we can point this thing right in. We can even do a playbook for someone looking to open a business. Because what it comes down to is, you've made the mistakes. Mm-hmm. Other people
learn from me.
Learn from me. Yeah, learn from me. And it's like the nicest thing you can do is actually just to learn from the best in the industry. And to close out, we actually had an amazing review of you, Nathan, by one of our previous guests, Ziv Shalev, the inventor of the Wally and the director of Breville Beans.
No way.
I'm like, Nathan's coming on. And he's like, no way. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, that man is a genius.
Wow.
So just take that as a compliment. It's an absolute compliment. But yeah, it just goes to show you how well you're held and regarded in the industry. So thank you so much for coming on. We look forward to seeing you again soon.
My pleasure. Thank you.
If you want to contact us, guys, please email us at hello@itsjustcoffeepod.com. We will be back to you. And please follow us on all of our socials. Our new Instagram is popping off. And I think just from our chat today, I'm going to start kind of creating playlists that kind of pull all of our guests that have and streamline kind of topics of conversation. So from business, from today's amazing pod with Nathan today and anything else. So kind of tune in there.
And we'll see you at the coffee break.
Yeah.
I think we're going somewhere for the coffee break today. Is that right?
We are going somewhere. Yes.
Finally.
Adventure. But yeah. I've been Liam Conroy. This is Sonu Sherpa. And it's just coffee.